Hi guys, this is Marshal Suchet, and you're watching a battle replay between me and a friend of mine called Sun Tzu. This is for a historical battle. I used the Swedes, and he used the Russians, so this is my army. I've got 7 line units, 1 guard unit, 5 Jaeger units, a mounted Jaeger unit, a life guard unit, a dragoon unit, and a hussar unit, and a unit of horse artillery, and I think a 3 or 6 star general. Sun Tzu has the Russian army with, I think it's 7 line units, 2 guard units, 2 Jaeger units, 2 heavy cavalry units, 2 lance units, a hussar unit, and 2 units of artillery with a normal general. So yeah, we agreed to fight with historical armies, so these are pretty accurate. The Russians didn't have much in the way of skirmishes because they were worried that if they allowed their men to skirmish, that they wouldn't obey orders and that they might mutiny. So for that reason, the Russians generally tended to prefer defending from dense terrain, and they were very sort of one-dimensional army. They either tended to defend or attack, but they couldn't really sort of, they didn't have the tactical finesse of other European armies, who used far more skirmishes. Traditionally, about a third of every European army towards the end of the Napoleonic Wars had skirmishes, whereas the Russians only had probably less of a quarter who actually deployed as Jaeger. So anyway, I'm moving up. I want to get a good defensive position so I can hold off his Russians. I know that he's taken artillery and has more of it than me, so for this reason I've put my cavalry safely behind this hill here. Don't those Swedish voices sound funny? I really can't take it seriously. It doesn't sound like they're really that aggressive. Yeah. Anyway, not the most warlike sounding people, the Swedes. But anyway, so I've formed my defensive line. I've got my cannons here. I've got a reserve of infantry, so if his Russians break through my lines, I can shoot them. And yeah, I have my screen of Jaegers. Now, I've never really liked Jaegers that much. I've usually found that they're not that effective in a battle. They're only really good for giving harassing fire. And against Sun Tzu, who likes charging with the Russians, it's usually not a good idea to take them. You're better off having more units of line infantry that can actually put back his charge. But seeing as this is a historical battle, I felt like I had to try and get a proper force composition, and the Swedes had probably a good third of their infantry being Jaeger. Although I think for the Swedes, a lot of their Jaeger units probably deployed as line infantry, which is something you can't do in this game, unfortunately. Anyway, so he's moving through the forest. He wants to attack my flank whilst not getting shot at. And I've avoided the temptation of actually engaging him in the forest too, because I know that my Swedes won't be able to contend with his Russians. Put forward some stakes, and my artillery's there as well, firing into the back of my Jaegers. Anyway, he's moved cavalry through the forest. He's going to attack the far right flank, which is only held by a skirmisher screen. So let's see how this charge goes. I haven't noticed this yet. I'm more focused in on what's happening over here, so it takes me a little bit to notice. But they're only Jaeger, and I don't know. They're not that important. They cost a lot of money though. It's like 760 gold for a unit that has almost no impact on the battle. This cavalry getting shot a bit though. This charge hasn't exactly been costless for them. Now he's charging the rest of my line, which is going to form square. So I think this is the end of his hussars. Let's see, can they get away? suffered a lot of casualties. So that charge was sort of worth it. It was a good move, I think. But at the end of the day, it didn't really have a decisive impact on my army. I managed to eventually see us move and form square before it became a problem. So I'm moving back my Jaeger screen. I'm pulling back the Jaegers there so they don't get shot by my artillery. Firing canister into the woods at the Russians. They should be fairly safe though, because they're pretty deep in the forest and they have pretty good cover. So yeah. Anyway, he's moving his cavalry up on this flank. So he's going to try and charge me. Do I see this? Can't remember. Let them go. Oof. Bit slow to react here. I do counter-charge. I don't think this will go well for his lancers. No. He probably should have held back the Cossacks. I usually find they're not that dangerous in a combat. Well, he has hurt my cavalry a bit with their charge. Let's see what else is happening. Just a firefight, really. His Jaegers versus mine. But yeah, he's moving infantry up on this flank now, and I'm going to withdraw my cavalry to make sure they don't get shot apart. I've spread my units into a really thin line so I can maximize their firepower, and if the Russians charge, I can bring up my cavalry reserves, or what's left of them, and they can counter-charge. Whenever you're facing a bayonet attack, always try and keep cavalry in reserve so you can charge the enemy charges and take advantage of the fact that they're not going to be in square when they're attacking. Move my screen up here. Let's try and protect my cannons a bit from his skirmisher fire. Suffered a few casualties. Deployed stakes. I don't normally deploy these, but I think for this battle I needed to keep his cavalry at bay and only attacking certain parts of my line. So anyway, my cavalry's